UN for units, and I'm going to be working in millimeters. So it's millimeters. That's it. Okay, so I'm ready to start. Okay, so we're gonna start. Typically, I will start with reference planes, but the problem here is that if you go reference plane, you can only draw planes, and I need to draw some circles. So reference planes is not gonna be good for me in this opportunity. I'm gonna go for reference line and right to the left. If you go here, you see you have the option for circle right here. So let's start it. So we said we're gonna need first a circle with let's say the diameter is 450. So we're gonna need a 225. A 225 radius, and then I'm going to need a 125 radius for the smaller one. Same technique. Starting from here, you choose a circle, and 125 for the smaller one. Okay, great. Once we are here, I'm going to create my void, right? Later on, we talk about voids and everything, but once I'm here, I'm gonna create it. So I'm gonna need here a offset of 2 millimeters. So create reference line. I'm gonna go for a circle, and I'm gonna add an offset to it of 20. Pick a line, and I have this is escape, so I go out with command. So this right here is the outdoor wall of my planter, and this is the inside wall of my planter. Same thing here, outside, inside. Okay, so I guess my for right now I'm fine right here on the top view. Now let me go to the front view and work a little bit on the actual height. So initially we need a reference plane. Here you can use reference plane, so I can use reference line. Let's keep a reference plane. So I'm gonna add right here a 450. I'm gonna name this top planter. It's nice there. And once I'm here, I'm gonna add also the base, right? Remember, say 40 for the base. So I change the offset for 40, and I don't think I'm gonna name this one. I think I'm just fine here. Okay, so that's gonna be the top of my planter, and this right here is going to be the inside of my planter, right? Good. Okay, next thing, once I'm here, I guess I'm going to back to the top view. Now let's start working with the parameters. Remember we mentioned earlier about how parameters works in Revit. Real quick, I'm gonna refresh that. Somebody missed my previous video. So when we talk about families in Revit, we're going to be talking about basically 3 elements: reference planes, parameters, and geometry. So how this is going to work? Well, we're going to create a hierarchy system in which the parameters are going to control the reference planes, and the reference planes are going to be linked to my geometry. Actually, it's going to be all the way around. The geometry is going to be linked to my reference plane. So when the parameters change, since the parameters control the reference plane, the reference planes are going to change. And since the geometry is locked or linked to my reference plane, the geometry is going to change. It's some sort of a change reaction in which once you change this one will change, and this one will change either. So what is the advantage of this thing? Why is so great? I mean, why is so why is so great? And it's actually great. Well, in other softwares there are no parametrics like 3ds Max and even AutoCAD 3D. If you need to modify the geometry, you need to go inside the geometry with everything that means, right? So you have to get into the geometry, select the vertex, the size, or whatever the software work with, and actually perform the modifications inside the geometry. The difference with Revit, since it's what we call a parametric software, or create parametric geometry, is that you don't have to go into the geometry. Once you create the geometry, you leave the geometry alone. That's it. End of the story. Now, if you need to modify the geometry, you go into the parameters. And to modify the parameter is the easiest thing in the world, because you have to go here, and very often you just change a value here, or a value here, or a value here from your keyboard. That's it. And once you do this, the whole thing is going to change in the direction that you want. So it makes your work much faster. That's a bit of the different. It's a big difference actually of working with parameters, geometric parameters, or parametric geometry, and non-parametric geometry, right? Okay, so that's a little bit of explanation of what parameters mean. So again, coming back to this, we have already our reference plane. That's that. Next, we're going to create our parameters that will control the reference plane, and then afterwards we're going to create the geometry and link the geometry with the reference plane. So now we are here. We're about to create our parameters. Here, let's put this in here. Okay, so let's create this one. Now I'm going to create this parameter first. And the process of creating parameters is quite simple. We first need to place what we call a permanent dimension, which is this one right here, or this one right here. If you are in the modify, or actually in the create, it's right there. So select it. It is right here actually in the modify. So go modify. You have all the type of dimension. For this one, we're gonna go radius. So go radius. And it's 225. I'm gonna change the annotation scale. Yeah, that's good. That's gonna be my first parameter. Now I'm gonna need a parameter for this one. 2.5. A parameter for this one, and a parameter for this one. And also I need one for the height. But let's get done with this, and then we talk about the height. Okay. So that's my parameter. So this is right now what it is. This is a dimension. It's a simple dimension. Nothing more to it. So I'm going to create now a parameter based on this dimension. So I want this dimension to control the radius of the circle right here. The way I do this is by clicking on the dimension right here on the label dimension. There's nothing associated with it. So we're going to create parameter by clicking here. Okay. So I'm gonna name this one. It's a family parameter, and it's a type parameter. And the name I'm gonna call this top. I'm gonna call this R top. So ready top. Yeah, family type R top. That's right. Let's go for this one. It's going to be a different parameter. Selected, same technique. We're clicking right here. The create parameter. It's a family. It's a type. I'm going to call this a void, or R void. our void top. And make this a little smaller. And then I have here the base. Same thing, family type. I'm gonna call this R base. Okay. And now this is the R void, because it's gonna be for my void base. R void base. Okay. I have everything I need in here. Once I'm here, maybe I can go to the top. I mean to the front